The Buddha's enlightenment. How did he enter the holy path? Welcome back, everyone, to Mind Podcast. This Dharma that I have realized is very deep, difficult to see and difficult to understand, peaceful and sublime, unattainable by mere reasoning, subtle, to be experienced by the wise. But the people of this generation are addicted to attachment, seeking pleasure in attachment, and delighted in attachment. It is truly hard for such a generation to see the truth, namely, dependent origination. And it is hard to see this truth, namely, the stilling of all formations, the relinquishment of all acquisitions, the destruction of craving, dispassion, cessation, and nibbana. The Buddha, shortly after his enlightenment. Enlightenment is the realization of nibbana. Although it is not easy, it is not impossible. There are still monks in modern times who can realize this true state. According to what the Buddha taught to his last disciple, Subhata, before the Buddha's final nibbana, as recorded in the Mahaparimana Sutta, wherever the Noble Eightfold Path is rightly practiced, there are always enlightened beings such as stream enterers, once-returners, non-returners, and fully enlightened arahants. But if the Noble Eightfold Path is practiced only partially, no enlightened beings can be found there. For instance, if one practices only 7 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path, neglecting right concentration, jhana meditation, it will be difficult for the practitioner to reach enlightenment. Or in some meditation centers, if they neglect the 3 basic virtues, right speech, right action, right livelihood, leaving only 5 factors, they will never attain profound wisdom, mental development, or ultimate enlightenment. Today, there are still many places where the full Noble Eightfold Path is practiced correctly, including isolation from the world, solitude, and strict restraint of the senses, guarding the 6 sense spaces. Only in those places can enlightened beings be found. What is called nibbana is not nibbana. The above statement is hard to accept, but it is the truth. As the Buddha said, nibbana is merely cessation or stopping, which may sound difficult to accept, but it is true. In this chapter, I will explain enlightenment according to the meaning the Buddha taught, as it is, clearly and precisely. I will also describe the final stages of the path leading to enlightenment. But first, I want to talk about what nibbana is not. The devaluation of the meaning of nibbana. Throughout history, whenever Buddhism has flourished in a certain place, there has always been a tendency to alter the meaning of nibbana to suit the majority of people there. The pressure from popular understanding and culture often distorts the truth to make it easier for people to assimilate into Buddhist philosophy. Similarly, teaching the Dharma becomes easier if the teachers say only what the audience wants to hear. Furthermore, the ambiguous meaning of nibbana forces teachers to explain it in ways that do not challenge their unenlightened state. All these reasons lead to the devaluation of the true meaning of nibbana. For example, nowadays, many people define nibbana as letting go of everything that happens in life. In truth, nibbana is letting go and complete relinquishment of all things as they truly are, realized by the purified mind through meditation. Or, they say it is an immortal state, a non-dual awareness without discrimination, that everything is one, neither arising nor ceasing. In this way, the ultimate goal of Buddhism becomes merely a way of living to avoid suffering and problems, a hopeless surrender to the ups and downs of life without facing the inherent suffering, dukkha, that exists in all forms of existence. It is like a prisoner with mental issues who constantly celebrates the time spent in confinement without seeking a higher ideal of liberation. Such kind and gentle definitions taught to Buddhists diminish the true meaning of nibbana as the Buddha clearly defined it. And those who spend much time following such ideas and thinking of nibbana in this way are like people who have worked hard to buy only a lemon. Nibbana as a banana. When I was a child following another religion, I used to ask my religious teachers what God was. They always answered by telling me what God was not, or they gave me answers that were impossible to comprehend. For example, they defined God as indescribable, too supreme to be explained, or as the ultimate reality, or the source of all beings, or infinite consciousness, or pure understanding. All these were terms that had no specific meaning that I could understand. Later, when I asked many Buddhist monks to explain the meaning of nibbana, they gave me the same lofty and incomprehensible definitions, such as indescribable, too supreme to be explained, or the ultimate reality, or the source of all beings, or infinite consciousness, or pure understanding. Once again, I was hearing the same abstract terms that I had heard in my childhood. Some definitions were even self-contradictory. For example, they define nibbana as the state of unmanifested consciousness. In reality, consciousness is the core of the process of awareness that allows experience to manifest. So unmanifested consciousness essentially means unconscious manifestation, or unconscious consciousness, which makes no clear sense. Some places even define nibbana as harmony with the ungraspable. That's absurd. How can we harmonize with something we can never grasp or make contact with? Such vague definitions cannot be called wisdom. The serious issue here is that these confusing definitions bewilder Buddhists, who need to clearly understand what nibbana is, as it is the goal, or at least the ideal, that they are following in Buddhism. If they do not understand, it is like they are boarding a bus without knowing where it's going. It is even worse if someone who does not follow Buddhism asks you what the goal of your practice is in this life, or many lives, and all you can give is a vague answer. Many people want to describe nibbana to others using lofty and mystical terminology as if to puzzle the listener, and when the listener cannot understand, they think the speaker is profound and wise. These descriptions of nibbana as something mysterious, lofty, and perplexing lack honesty and authenticity, so I call it the banana nibbana. Always crooked, not straightforward, and unclear. Experience has taught us that when someone truly knows something and has regularly experienced it for themselves, they can always describe it clearly, in detail, and straightforwardly. Mystifying something is a sure sign that the person has no idea what they're talking about. Clarifying nibbana. Here, I present 3 descriptions of nibbana in relation. 1. Nibbana is the highest happiness. 2. Nibbana is the complete cessation of all greed, hatred, and delusion. And 3. Nibbana is the total cessation of what we call the process of body and mind. All 3 of these descriptions are from the Buddha himself and give a clear picture of nibbana. When one understands what enlightenment is, they can more easily see the path to enlightenment, and all of the Buddha's teachings will become unusually clear. 1. The highest happiness. The Buddha, nibbana is the highest happiness. This is perhaps the most useful way to describe enlightenment. Not only is it direct and easy to understand, but it is also appealing. It explains why so many monks and nuns have strived for the goal of nibbana over the past 26 centuries. We all seek happiness, and if there is a happiness that is the highest, that is what we want most. Indeed, Buddhism has always taught how to be happier and happier until one can reach the ultimate peak of all happiness, nibbana. These days, I present the Buddha's teachings on the 4 Noble Truths by rearranging the order of the truths. I realize that if I always begin by talking about suffering, the audience loses interest. They already have enough suffering in their lives. They did not spend their precious time coming here just to hear more about suffering. Like a salesperson introducing a product, I see that first impressions are most important. Therefore, I introduce the teachings of the 4 Noble Truths like this. 1. Happiness. 2. The path to happiness. 3. The absence of happiness. The cause of unhappiness. These teachings are just like the Buddha's teachings, except that I have rearranged the order slightly to create a more engaging effect for the listener. Some might call this marketing, but I only want to put the ultimate goal of Buddhism at the forefront. Describing nibbana as the highest happiness also reveals that the Noble Eightfold Path is a gradual path of increasing happiness. Whoever wholeheartedly practices this path will become happier. The Buddha said in the Aranavibhanga Sutta, when one knows how to define joy, and having known that, they can pursue their inner joy. The practitioner pursues the inner joy of peace, which is the state of jhana meditation, without fear, until they attain the highest happiness. What are the highest forms of happiness you have ever experienced? Love, sex, drugs, music, seeing your first child born? But you will find that the happiness of jhana meditation far surpasses all those forms of happiness. Thus, when someone attains the first jhana, that experience will blow away all previous notions of happiness. Jhana meditation brings profound wisdom to understand the true meaning of happiness. While the state of jhana meditation is not the highest happiness, it is close to the highest happiness of enlightenment, which the Buddha called the happiness of enlightenment, or the bliss of awakening, Sammasambodhi Sukha. From the state of jhana, the practitioner progresses further to a slightly higher form of happiness, which is the highest happiness, and that is nibbana. Recent research around the world has concluded that meditation makes people happier and that genuine Buddhist monks might be the happiest people on earth. Therefore, if someone wishes to have a peaceful and happy time, they should practice good meditation. And those who wish to attain the highest happiness above all should aim for nibbana, the complete end of greed, hatred, and delusion. Venerable Sariputta, the Buddha's chief disciple, defined nibbana as the complete end of greed, hatred, and delusion. I have a story that may illustrate this meaning. 5 children were playing a wishing game. When asked, if you had one wish, what would it be? The child with the best wish would win the game. The first child said, if I had one wish, I'd wish for a cold chocolate ice cream, because it was a hot summer day. The second child said, if I had one wish, I'd wish for an ice cream factory. That way, I could have as much ice cream as I want whenever I want. The first child was stunned, realizing that their wish for just one ice cream was less clever than their friend's wish for an entire factory. The third child said, my wish is to have $1 billion. With that money, I could buy an ice cream factory, a candy store, and a fast food restaurant just for me. I could eat anything, and my mom couldn't stop me. And with the rest of the money, I could buy anything I wanted. The second child felt outsmarted, wishing only for an ice cream factory, while the third child wished for $1 billion. Who could top that? The fourth child said, if I had one wish, I'd wish for 3 different things. First, an ice cream factory. Second, $1 billion. And third, I'd wish for 3 more wishes. That way, I could wish for anything I wanted, and I could keep making wishes forever. Even the third child, who had wished for $1 billion, felt defeated by the fourth child. The first 3 children all admired the fourth child's cleverness, thinking they were a genius who had won the game. After all, what could be higher than the ability to wish for anything endlessly? But the 5th child surpassed all the others. They gently answered, if I had one wish, I'd wish to be completely satisfied and therefore not need to wish for anything anymore. The 5th child won the wishing game, just like the person sitting in meditation wins the race of human life. That person understands that the highest happiness, nibbana, is the end of all greed, hatred, and delusion. Nibbana, ultimately, is complete contentment. There are 2 kinds of freedom in the world, the freedom to desire and the freedom from desire. The first type of freedom corresponds to the 4 wishes of the first 4 children, and this is the kind of freedom worshipped in today's societies, which prioritize material happiness as the ultimate goal. Modern nations and the pursuit of unlimited freedom. Modern nations have attempted to create more and more unlimited freedoms for their citizens to freely pursue happiness through wealth, power, and various forms of material and living conveniences. However, in reality, their citizens have become increasingly dissatisfied, less content, and more discontented. The second type of freedom is the meaning of the 5th child's wish, satisfaction and contentment. Only a spiritual path like Buddhism pursues freedom from desires and cravings. Nibbana is a perfect state of this second type of freedom. For the complete cessation of greed, hatred, and delusion also means the cessation of all desires. It is the end of all craving. Peace, enlightenment, the complete cessation of the body-mind process. The cessation here means the complete stopping, the ending, leaving no trace or remnant of the body-mind process. We may also call it the total extinguishing of the body-mind process. In the Buddha's time, even ordinary villagers understood the meaning of nibbana because the word nibbana was commonly used to refer to the state of an extinguished oil lamp. When the oil runs out, the wick is spent, or the wind blows the flame away, the lamp is extinguished, and people would say, the flame has nibbaned. Thus, nibbana was a word used to indicate the complete cessation of a natural process, whether it be the simple flame of an oil lamp or the complex process of our body-mind life. When the body-mind process comes to a stop, the result is peace. Of course, a person who wants to precisely understand this profound meaning can only do so by realizing the emptiness, anatta, of the body-mind process. Deep insight, vipassana, gained from meditation reveals that there is no self here, there, or anywhere, operating this process. In reality, the doer, volition, will, and the knower, mind, consciousness, are merely natural processes. When one has truly realized the core of this wisdom, they no longer have anything to fear losing, and there is no self to fear being destroyed. Only when there exists a solid, permanent entity or something do we use the word destroy that thing. But in the case of the complete cessation or total extinguishing of a natural process, we simply use the word ending. Nibbana is the selfless and natural process of the body-mind, and that process is carrying out its cessation. That is all. It simply means the cessation, the extinguishing of a process. As Venerable Buddhaghosa, the eminent Buddhist commentator, once wrote in The Path of Purification, "There is suffering, but no sufferer. There is action, but no doer of the action. There is nibbana, but no one who enters it. There is a path, but no one walks upon it." The first realization of nibbana, stream entry. After many years of diligently practicing the full Noble Eightfold Path, it is time for the practitioner to reflect on what all these practices mean. After experiencing the state of jhana meditation, the practitioner has gained ultra-strong mindfulness, which can hold any object for investigation, mindfulness, calmly and immovably for an extended period. The hindrances of worry, restlessness, and drowsiness have been eliminated. The mind is clear, lucid, and still. It is charged with inner happiness, so it always has the capability and strength to overcome fear whenever mindfulness delves into unfamiliar territories. It is truly a joy when you can make the mind brave, heroic, and unwavering in its quest for truth. There are times when the practitioner comes close to places where the truth is rarely found, where things are seen as they truly are, but fear, greed, and hatred pull the mind away. But now, after the practitioner has experienced and dwelled in the state of jhana meditation, they no longer have greed, no longer have anger, and no longer care to protect the continuity of a soul or self. Using the reflection contemplation on the state of jhana to gather data for themselves, the practitioner continues to drill down into the core of everything that they are mindful of and investigating. Courageously and clearly, the mind breaks through to the root of the experience, into what I call the fortress of the self, governed by the two overlords, the doer and the knower. Right there, for the first time, the practitioner sees with absolute certainty that inside the fortress, it is completely empty. There is no one there. The experience of such deep insight is entirely different from anything we can imagine. As the Buddha said in the Sutta of the True Person, although he spoke about the state of jhana meditation, this can similarly be applied to the context of stream entry. Because what they imagine it will be, the actual experience will always be different. What people often imagine is, in reality, often not the case. Here occurs a great shift in thought, a radical change in the practitioner's perspective. Just as when a geological layer shifts, the earth has an earthquake. This rapid, strange, and fundamental shift in the practitioner's inherent view of reality is like an internal seismic event. Many castles and fortresses built from long-standing concepts and reinforced views are shattered. The ultra-strong wisdom acts like a bomb inside the mind. For a moment, the practitioner does not know where they stand, as there is no longer any foothold, no place to cling to. They know with certainty that they are not insane. Indeed, the mind feels more holy than ever before. It is truly clear, calm, and blessed. One of the sure signs of deep wisdom at this point is the enduring, lasting happiness and peace. After his enlightenment, it was said that the Buddha sat still for 7 days, motionless in the bliss of liberation. After some time, possibly after many days, it will feel as if the dust has settled. After the earthquake, the bright, dazzling light begins to fade, allowing the practitioner to see things more clearly again. The practitioner surveys how many fortresses of attachment have been demolished and how many still remain standing. When the practitioner has clearly seen that all illusions of a self, either an individual ego or a universal self, have been completely destroyed, they have entered the stream of the noble path. When one becomes a stream enterer, they have permanently destroyed the fetters of self-attachment, now and forever. After stream entry, everything becomes crystal clear. The practitioner wonders why they were so ignorant before, not realizing the truth of no self. The truth of no self has been repeated many times in the Buddhist teachings. Only now does the practitioner understand, realizing that due to stubborn thinking, willful rejection, and the 5 hindrances, people filter what they have learned, twist it, and interpret it, so that the Buddha's teachings become what they want to hear according to their own will. Even a very famous scholar meditation master in the world today still believes that no self is merely a tool used by the Buddha to get rid of self-attachment. It seems that people are afraid of losing their self, afraid of losing the self-soul they have imagined. Delusion is indeed incredibly powerful, more deeply rooted than most of us can know. As the philosopher Voltaire once insightfully said, "The only way to understand the concept of infinity in mathematics is to consider the limits of human ignorance." Now, the illusion has been uncovered, and delusion begins to unravel. After penetrating the core of the truth of no self, the practitioner can clearly understand the entire picture of suffering. Before, the practitioner often recoiled, unwilling to accept the truth that everything is suffering. This is due to the attachment to the self, wanting to have a special refuge in life where suffering does not exist, an idyllic realm of perfect happiness, or a realm of the original mind or true self, or some other spiritual fantasy. Other things may suffer, but in this special refuge, the illusion of the self has been made the ultimate resting place. However, when the practitioner has seen the absolute emptiness sunyat of all phenomena, both internal and external, they no longer need that retirement home anymore, because there is no self to reside in that home. The age-old concern for the continuity of life, the continuity of the self, is also destroyed. There is no more self-attachment. By now, the practitioner fully agrees with the Buddha's straightforward teaching. All formations are suffering. All conditioned things are suffering. The entire path of all phenomena. This is the way of all phenomena, and we cannot do anything to change that law. Furthermore, when the practitioner clearly sees emptiness, the absence of any permanent self-nature, it means they also see that the entire process can end completely, with nothing to lose. It is interesting to note that many spiritual practitioners still want to hold on to something for themselves after enlightenment. But clinging to anything for oneself is still called attachment, even if it is attachment to the purest of things. However, after entering stream entry, all attachments arising from the illusion of self-attachment are completely eradicated. The practitioner realizes that all experiences are merely phenomena arising from causes and conditions, and thus they will completely cease. Where there is birth, there is death. And this truth includes both the body and mind phenomena. As mentioned in the previous chapter, the complete understanding of impermanence is not merely seeing the rise and fall, gain and loss, birth and death like waves in the ocean, but also seeing the entire ocean disappear along with the continental shelf beneath it. To fully understand impermanence, the practitioner must see such a complete cessation, and this understanding runs continuously from the discovery of no self. Thus, in many sutras, we can read about many stream enterers describing their attainment in words such as, "Whatever arises will all eventually completely cease." Through this, we can see that the complete understanding of no self allows the mind to fully comprehend suffering and impermanence. The event of entering stream entry is the realization that all experiences, including the knower or knowing of those experiences, are impermanent, suffering, and without a self, always leading to cessation, suffering, and without any permanent essence. These 3 outstanding characteristics of life encompass all phenomena. Therefore, they are also the 3 essential natures of the body and mind. The body-mind process will one day come to a complete end, leaving no trace behind, extinguished, creating something from nothing. As I have noted, many people are still deeply attached to existence, so they view Nibbana as a kind of retirement home, a final destination, a place of rest for what they call the knower, the mind. Such people often take nothingness as a place with a proper name, they take emptiness as a solid, precious entity, and they take cessation as the beginning of some miraculous place. They are simply creating things out of nothing. This is the problem with language when people describe something by what it is not, using negative qualities, but from that nothingness, it becomes something. For example, when we say we see no one in the house, most people understand that no one is in the house. A few might confuse no one as the name of someone and believe that Mr. No One is in the house. From the state of having no one, human language can turn it into someone named no one in the house. Another example is the story of the childhood of Anuruddha, a great disciple of the Buddha. Due to good karma from his past life, Anuruddha always received good things in this life. One day, Anuruddha was playing a game with friends, betting with the food in his basket. But Anuruddha kept losing until all his lunch was gone. After losing, Anuruddha asked his servant to run to his wealthy family's house and ask his mother for more food. But Anuruddha continued losing, and the servant returned for more food. On the third trip, Anuruddha again sent the servant back, but this time there were no more cakes to give him. His mother told the servant to bring back the empty basket and tell Anuruddha it was nati cake. Nati in Pali means nothing. But on the way back to Anuruddha, the gods placed some heavenly cakes into the empty basket, believing that Anuruddha had accumulated good karma and deserved to have cakes for lunch. When the servant arrived, Anuruddha took the basket and said to his young teacher, "Master, here is the nati cake." But when Anuruddha opened the basket, the fragrance of the heavenly cakes was so enticing that he couldn't resist and immediately ate one. From then on, Anuruddha always asked his mother to make him nati cakes. Returning to the topic, the truth is that if the gods hadn't intervened, the nati cake would simply mean no cake at all. So why is it that some people can attain jhana meditation but do not achieve stream entry into the noble path? This is a great question. The answer is, aside from attaining jhana meditation, the practitioner must also have a deep understanding of the Buddha's teachings. I have provided the example of the flashlight and the map. Imagine three people searching for treasure in the forest at night. The first person has a flashlight to light the way, but no map to find the treasure. The second person has a map, but no flashlight to see the path. And the third person has both a map and a flashlight. It seems that only the third person will be able to find the treasure. In this analogy, the flashlight that illuminates the path symbolizes the clarity of mind gained through meditation, right concentration, and the map symbolizes the accurate application of the Buddha's teachings, Dharma. The treasure represents the attainment of stream entry. Only when a practitioner studies and practices properly, guided by the Dharma combined with the experience of jhana meditation, can they have the potential to discover Nibbana. In the Mahavedalla Sutta, translated as the Great Questions and Answers Sutta, recording the discussions between Venerable Mahakotthita and Venerable Sariputta, Venerable Sariputta pointed out that there are two triggers that activate right view. Here, right view refers to the attainment of stream entry after the elimination of self-view and wrong view. These two triggers are hearing the words of another and wise reflection. Venerable Sariputta also added that these two triggers must be supported by 5 auxiliary conditions: virtue, learning the Dharma, discussion, meditation, and vipassana, insight meditation. First, wise reflection, as I have defined in terms of practice, means the mental operation or intentional effort to return to the source, referring to the practice of insight meditation based on the state of jhana. In the previous example of the 1,000-petaled lotus containing a precious jewel at its core, the practice of meditation is like gently opening each petal of the lotus until we reach the jewel inside. This process illustrates how the operation of the mind returns to the source. The role of meditation, concentration, is to bring the practitioner close enough to the core. The role of insight, wisdom, is to see and realize the complete emptiness inside. Both meditation and insight are based on the foundation of virtue. Simply put, if the practitioner's virtue is not pure enough, the nimitta, mental image, will be blurred or may not appear at all, making it impossible to achieve jhana meditation. Therefore, Venerable Sariputta pointed out that the second trigger, wise reflection, must be supported by 3 auxiliary conditions: virtue, together with meditation, and insight, virtue, concentration, wisdom. these three conditions merge to become wise reflection. Second, hearing the words of another is the trigger that helps the practitioner attain stream entry. Based on the 5 auxiliary conditions, this trigger includes the remaining 2 conditions, learning the Dharma and discussion. Merely reading scriptures or listening to lectures from monks and nuns is not enough. The practitioner must also discuss what they have learned and heard with a good teacher to ensure they have understood correctly. In schools and universities, we always have teaching, tutoring, and discussion phases. These phases correspond exactly to the 2 conditions of learning the Dharma, Sutta, and discussion, Sakacha, that Venerable Sariputta pointed out. Going deeper, in fact, the words of another, through speech and writing, here refers to the words of a true saint, which are more effective. This does not mean they have to be a senior monk, an elder, or an abbot. The saints are those who have attained one or more of the fruits of sainthood: stream entry, once returner, non-returner, or arahant. They have realized the truth of impermanence, suffering, and no self deeply. They have directly experienced nibbana themselves, so they know exactly what they are talking about. Learning the Dharma from a teacher who is a true saint is a prerequisite for a practitioner to enter the stream of sainthood, according to the suttas. Otherwise, the practitioner will likely never attain the fruit of stream entry. A saint and an ordinary person may convey the same message, but the listener's intuition can detect a significant difference. From these 2 different voices, the Dharma can be felt in different ways. The Dharma spoken by a saint is always alive and heartfelt. When the Dharma is spoken by an ordinary person, even if entirely correct, it only sounds very good. This is where Theravada Buddhism is often misunderstood, like the idea of a mind transmission. In reality, the power and impact of the direct teachings from a saint are easily understandable, because it is easier to transmit the information and for the listener to feel and deeply understand. This has nothing to do with the concept of mind transmission, which is believed to be real by those in Vajrayana and Mahayana traditions. Moreover, the words of another saint are only half of the equation, just one of the 2 major, necessary and sufficient, conditions for a practitioner to enter the stream of sainthood. So we can summarize that to enter the stream of the noble path, the practitioner must fully practice the 5 auxiliary conditions: virtue, learning the Dharma, discussion, meditation, and insight meditation. The practitioner should ensure that learning the Dharma and discussion combine to create the first major condition, hearing the words of another, meaning from a true saint. Then, let virtue and meditation be the solid foundation for insight meditation, so that the practitioner can fulfill the second major condition, wise reflection, which is the mindful effort to return to the source. Later, as the practitioner advances, they will combine these 2 major conditions, hearing the words of another, and wise reflection, which will make the practice profoundly deep and powerful, like combining explosives and fire, creating an intense effect that breaks down many barriers so that the practitioner can leap straight into the stream of sainthood. Indeed, when these 2 come together, the explosion happens. That is deep insight. After the dust settles, everything becomes clear, and the practitioner vividly perceives that all illusions of a self, ego, have been completely destroyed. And right there, they enter and attain the fruit of stream entry. Faith-based and wisdom-based practitioners. Can one attain stream entry without attaining jhana meditation? A faith-based practitioner, also called a Sada Nimitta practitioner, practices Buddhism based on absolute faith in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, the Triple Gem. A wisdom-based practitioner, Panya Nimitta, on the other hand, practices Buddhism based on the guidance of the Buddha's teachings, the Dharma. The question arises, can a practitioner attain stream entry without first attaining jhana meditation? That is, can a practitioner enter the stream of the Noble Path without practicing jhana meditation? Based on what I have written so far in this book, I do not see any possibility of a practitioner fully penetrating and understanding the entire meaning of impermanence, suffering, and no self, unless they have gathered data from the experience of jhana meditation. However, according to some stories recorded in the Pali Canon, there are exceptions. One of the most notable stories is about the 31 assassins sent by Devadatta to kill the Buddha. leaving no trace of any suspects. The first assassin was to kill the Buddha, the next 2 were to kill that assassin, then 4 others were to kill the 2 before them. 8 more were to kill those 4, and 16 were to finish off the 8 to eliminate all witnesses. However, in the presence of the Buddha's divine power, none of them could complete their mission. Instead, each group bowed and begged the Buddha for forgiveness, asking him to teach them the Dharma. None of them had clear virtue or knowledge of meditation, but they are all said to have attained stream entry immediately after hearing the Buddha expound the Dharma. This special exception is perhaps explained by the 2 types of practitioners on the path to entering the stream of the Noble Path: the faith-based Saddha Nimitta and the wisdom-based Panya Nimitta practitioners, as explained in the suttas. The 5 spiritual faculties are faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom: Saddha, Virya, Sati, Samadhi, and Panya. These are the mental powers needed to progress toward enlightenment. When concentration, samadhi, is weak, the result is that wisdom is also weak. However, if faith is strong and the energy of practice is strong, it can compensate. A person with strong faith and great effort who enters the stream of the Noble Path is called a faith-based practitioner, Saddha Nimitta, while a practitioner who primarily follows the practice of meditation and wisdom is called a wisdom-based practitioner, Panya Nimitta, practicing with the goal of developing wisdom. Both types of practitioners, of course, need mindfulness. It is possible that through mindfulness, a person with strong faith in the Buddha's teachings, combined with abundant energy to support that faith, could attain stream entry without needing jhana meditation. An old proverb says, "Faith can move mountains." However, that faith must be extraordinarily strong and unparalleled to move the Everest of delusion, ignorance, and proceed directly into the stream of the Noble Path without the practice of jhana meditation. The level of faith required would be similar to the faith of the young man in the following story, taken from the commentaries on the Dhammapada. A young man approached an accomplished monk and asked to be accepted as his disciple. The monk refused, saying that accepting a student would only cause headaches because students rarely follow their teacher's instructions properly. The young man said that he had absolute faith in the teacher and would surely follow any instruction given to him. The monk decided to test him. The teacher instructed him to walk directly east without stopping or changing direction no matter what he encountered. The young man obeyed and headed straight east. He walked through bushes, rice fields, and swamps, continuing straight despite the obstacles. When he encountered a large lake, he kept walking. The water rose to his feet, then his stomach, his back, and up to his shoulders, until only his head remained above the surface, soon to be submerged. Just before the water reached his ears, the teacher shouted for him to stop and come out of the lake. Afterward, the young man became a disciple of the monk. It is indeed easy to teach a disciple who is willing to risk their life to follow the teacher's instructions. Perhaps such absolute faith in the teacher, like the Buddha, could help a faith-based practitioner, Saddha Nimitta, progress directly into the stream of the Noble Path without needing to practice jhana meditation. However, I do not see many cases like this in modern times, where people's minds are often filled with doubt, even while they are bowing in front of a Buddha statue. Such a high and strong level of faith may only exist in an accomplished saint. Yet, faith without accompanying wisdom is also less balanced. For this reason, the path of wisdom based on jhana meditation, the path of the wisdom-based practitioner, Panya Nimitta, has always been encouraged. In this regard, wisdom is indeed more important. According to the scriptures, if faith is developed alone, even if one enters the stream of the Noble Path, a faith-based practitioner, Saddha Nimitta, will never advance to the stage of non-returner, anagami, and certainly will not become an arahant unless they attain the jhana meditative absorptions. It is similar to how one cannot reach the precious core of a tree without first cutting through the outer layers of bark and wood. Cause and effect and some consequences of stream entry. The Buddha said, "One who sees dependent origination sees the Dharma. One who sees the Dharma sees dependent origination." One of the inevitable outcomes of stream entry is a complete understanding of dependent origination. Before realizing the Dharma, the knower and the doer are perceived as part of the self, or as aspects of the self, by the practitioner. But after entering the stream of the Noble Path, these are seen as mere natural processes, governed not by anyone, but by the impersonal and natural law of cause and effect, as the Buddha perfectly explained in the law of dependent origination. It is simply a natural and selfless process. Stream enterers clearly understand the causes behind doing, actions, and knowing, consciousness. They also understand the consequences of those actions and consciousness. Specifically, they recognize how sensory desires and the craving for existence drive the process of knowing the mind, not only from moment to moment, but also from life to life. Indeed, stream enterers understand that one of the functions of dependent origination is to explain how rebirth occurs without the need for a self or soul. For the most part, these two types of desires are the driving force for continued existence and becoming, which results in rebirth. Alternatively, if we view it in parallel, it is the illusion of the self and the refusal to accept the truth of suffering that create karma, actions, or formations, driving the mind into the cycle of new life. Therefore, a stream enterer has no doubt about the issue of rebirth as explained by the Buddha. Moreover, a stream enterer also understands why rebirth occurs. A stream enterer also sees through the 12 factors of dependent origination, paticca samuppada, in their state of cessation, which I often refer to as the cessation of conditioned phenomena. After seeing clearly what sustains the process of body and mind that continues life, the stream enterer also sees how it can completely cease, leaving no trace behind. They are also fully aware that since their stream entry into the Noble Path, the process of cessation has already begun. For the stream enterer, the process of life is merely suffering and death, and the movement toward the cessation of their existence has become irreversible, unstoppable. When the stream enterer fully comprehends the nature of impermanence, they realize that the process of body and mind can completely stop, leaving no trace. When they fully understand the nature of no self, they realize that there is nothing to lose in that final cessation, because there was never anything permanent to begin with, just a process. There is no self, no ego, no soul to be destroyed, nothing to lose, nothing to remain, not even a trace or shadow. There is no one at all. Likewise, once they see the truth of suffering in all forms of life, a strong motivation arises to hasten the process of body and mind toward complete cessation. This is as simple as someone realizing that an apple is rotten and deciding to throw it away immediately, knowing there's nothing worth keeping. After stream entry, the profound understanding of suffering, dukkha, throughout the process of life, naturally propels and guides the body-mind process towards cessation. Renunciation and letting go. At this point, renunciation or letting go of the unsatisfactory process of life has been firmly established. The decision is clear. The dissatisfaction stems from the nature of the process being impermanent, not self and suffering. Renunciation, abandonment. It is like having a friend who has deceived you hundreds of times, and after many years of putting up with it, you finally realize they are still deceiving you. You become fed up and decide to abandon them forever. It is like seeing that the apple is rotten, and renunciation leads you to throw it away immediately. Once again, we are borrowing language to try to describe these realities, as we have done throughout this book. Let me emphasize here that there is no owner, no one, behind the decision to renounce and let go, because a stream enterer no longer has any attachment to a self. In other words, the stream enterer has no illusion of self, no self-view, and no self-attachment left. If they did, they wouldn't be a stream enterer by the Buddha's definition. Letting go is an impersonal phenomenon, Dhamma, and it arises naturally after stream entry, regardless of whether the practitioner wants it or not. It is natural, it is the Dhamma, and that's all there is to it. Furthermore, renunciation and letting go are signs of the stream enterer's state. A stream enterer has seen this Dharma completely, especially the Dharma of suffering, dukkha, and so they naturally develop the urge and determination to let go in order to attain liberation. It's like the previous example of the prisoner, who after many years suddenly realizes that it's just a prison full of suffering, and they naturally decide to find a way out. Ignorance and the craving for existence bind beings to the wheel of samsara, the cycle of rebirth, and only letting go of the body-mind process can liberate the practitioner from that cycle of birth and death. Letting go is like the ejection seat on the flight of samsara. The person sitting in the seat decides to push the button, and the seat propels them out of the plane, escaping from the flight toward the harbor of samsara filled with suffering. Before attaining stream entry, all formations of actions are influenced by ignorance and delusion, so all actions are driven by the desire to have more and by clinging. After attaining stream entry, the process of all actions gradually becomes influenced by the Dharma, particularly the understanding of suffering, and thus actions increasingly lean toward renunciation, letting go, abandonment, and tranquility, fading away along the process of cause and effect leading to cessation. Along with the law of Nibbana, the Dharma of Nibbana, letting go brings about a fading away, particularly the gradual fading of greed and ill will, desire, anger. When the practitioner deeply realizes that the world of the five senses is permeated with the nature of suffering, dukkha, they no longer harbor any desires, love, or hatred toward that world. When the mind has renounced and abandoned the world of the five senses, that world naturally fades and dissolves from the mind. Again, it is not because someone decides to abandon the world, but it is simply part of an inevitable, selfless cause and effect process. Later, the world of the mind will also gradually fade away, as this process of the mind is also filled with the nature of suffering. Depending on the case of each stream enterer, depending on the prominent factors and strengths of the practitioner upon attaining stream entry. In other words, depending on the depth of their realization of suffering, impermanence, and non-self that has seeped into their tendencies and habits, the process of cessation will occur quickly or slowly, eventually leading to complete cessation and the realization of full liberation. Because this process is governed by natural law, it will reach its end within a limited time frame. No one can deliberately or intentionally delay or prolong it for as long as they wish. Once one has attained stream entry, they no longer possess such a mind or will. The natural process will eventually complete its cessation, leaving no trace. As the Buddha said, the longest it will take is 7 lifetimes from the time of stream entry. No more than 7 lifetimes. The law of Nibbana is this. The process of enlightenment and full liberation takes no more than 6 subsequent lifetimes. If we understand that the doer is not a self-ta, but merely part of a cause and effect process, we also understand that no stream enterer can decide the time span, whether it be 3 lifetimes, 5 lifetimes, or the full 6 lifetimes, before attaining full enlightenment. The issue is that a stream enterer no longer controls that process because, by definition, a stream enterer no longer has self-attachment, no self, no egocentric calculations according to their own desires. It is like they have boarded a vehicle bound for full liberation, Nibbana. Once they are on the vehicle, they cannot step off, nor can they control the driver anymore. The vehicle to Nibbana follows its own schedule and runs straight to its final stop. Thus, it is clear. Upon attaining stream entry, the practitioner no longer has the ability to choose, delay, or linger anywhere due to not yet wanting to achieve full enlightenment, out of compassion for beings, or wanting to stay and save sentient beings. That aspiration belongs to bodhisattvas. But by now, it is too late for bodhisattvas to make such vows. The law of Nibbana, the Dharma of Nibbana, is a natural process. The practitioner has passed the point of no return, unable to go back anymore, and it is a one-way, one-direction journey. It cannot stop or turn back. You will reach the final destination, Nibbana, no later than 7 lifetimes.